Hello, I'm going to do just a short video log on cheat meals. I know it's an issue that's talked about a lot over social media, and I know that girls particularly tend to struggle with this idea of breaking the diet and then having to sort of falling off the wagon and then having to get back on it. It can be very, very difficult, and for myself as well, it can be a mental battle sometimes, and it can be quite hard to have that cheat meal and then go back onto the diet. So I thought it'd be a good topic to talk about today. Are cheat meals always advantageous? Not necessarily. Should everybody have them? No, probably not. I think it really depends on how restrictive your diet is. People that do, the whole point of a cheat meal is that when your metabolism has slowed from a very restrictive diet, it sort of reboots it and resets it, just to make sure, keep it efficient, basically, to keep burning fat, keep building muscle. So that's really the advantage of it. But I would say that if you're not, if you're off season and you're not on a very restrictive diet anyway, there probably isn't a whole lot of point. Having said that, I do keep having cheat meals once a week. I think it helps with being sociable. I think it helps mentally, it gives me a little bit of a break, and I'd rather stick to that slightly more restrictive plan during the week and then have that one cheat meal at the weekend, or that day of flexible eating, just to sort of have that relief and that little break. So I do actually keep them in, but some people find it very difficult. So some people might opt for a refeed, so they stick to their healthy foods or types of foods, but they just might double the portions. And some people might avoid them altogether, especially if their diet isn't that restrictive. They're not in off season or they feel they don't need it. There's just no point in putting them in. So I've got a few tips here for people when it comes to having a cheat meal at the end of the week, and things to think about, and ways to do it possibly so that you feel you can kind of get back on the wagon almost. My first tip is definitely to have your cheat meal out. Go out and eat out in a restaurant. What's put on your plate is what you can eat. Your portion's decided. I find if you cook at home, you'll end up buying more than you need and end up probably eating more than you should. So not only does going out mean that you can control your portion size, but it also means that you get that sociable aspect as well. So you do feel like you can go out with your friends and just let loose a little bit on the diet. So I think that's quite a good way of doing it. You don't want to bring things into the house and not finish the foods and then have them there in the cupboards, knowing that you can't eat them. I think for a lot of people that would drive you crazy. Another good tip is to possibly give yourself a time slot. Some people say I'm going to have 1 hour where I can eat, and then as soon as 7 o'clock comes, that's it. It's finished. So it gives you sort of a very, very definite time slot in which to eat the foods. I'm not saying take a full hour of ramming everything into your mouth as quick as you can, but it just gives that sort of that definite ending to the cheat meal and getting back onto the diet. Another good idea is if you're going out to eat, don't starve yourself all day, knowing that you're going to indulge a little bit in the evening. Keep to your regular meals. And possibly even have a protein shake sort of an hour before you go, just so you're not absolutely starving. I think the worst thing is if you go to a restaurant and you're going starving hungry. You're obviously going to pick the unhealthy choices off the menu. If there's a salad bar or a buffet, you're going to go over the top. So really just make sure that you're not absolutely starving when you get there. It's good to just have that protein shake, keep you feeling a little bit full so you don't feel the need to overindulge. I think that's a good idea. Something that I do quite a lot, it's a bit bizarre, but I always have a green tea at the end of my cheat meal. It's just a way to sort of help the digestion, and it sort of makes you feel healthy. It sort of draws that line so that you then can go back onto your healthy foods. I don't know why, for me it just helps settle my stomach, and it finishes the end of the cheat meal quite well, and just resets your mind and focus back to being healthy. And moving back onto clean foods. Another thing which I've found is a lot of girls are struggling with at the moment is simple sugars, and whether to include them in cheat meals or to avoid them. Now sugar's a very addictive thing, and I find that if I can go a couple of weeks without it, the cravings actually go for it. So if possible, try and avoid them altogether. Obviously sometimes you do get a craving for sweet things like chocolate and stuff, and if you can be good with it and you can just have a little bit, then that's fine. But I just think that just having that, if you keep having it, you keep increasing that sort of addiction for it, and that taste for it, and that craving for it. So it's a good idea just to avoid it totally. You can make sort of protein pancakes and protein puddings and all sorts of sugar-free things, so that you get that taste of sweetness without having to actually indulge in the real thing. It's going to make you quite watery. It's going to make you feel awful, and actually sometimes you can get sort of soreness and inflammation from, if you're not used to sugar and then you have a lot of it, it can actually be very bad for the body. So it's not a good thing, so it's possibly best to just avoid it totally. And a final tip I've got, which I think works really well, is if you have your cheat meal sort of at lunchtime, I find that then I'm craving for the rest of the day. I find it really, really difficult. So if I'm in the house and I'm craving foods, I go and brush my teeth. It sounds really weird, but it just gets rid of any cravings. And obviously once you brush your teeth, there's a couple of hours there where you don't want to eat anything really, because it doesn't taste right, it doesn't taste nice. And it'll just take, through that time, then the craving can die down again. And then hopefully you can get through it. So yeah, so they're my little tips anyway. So hopefully you find them quite useful. Like I say, it's not for everybody. It's a very individual thing, a cheat meal, and sometimes it's best not to do it. Sometimes it works for you, and in my case it's more of a mental relief, like I say. So hopefully you found it useful anyway, and yeah, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks.